Today, I'm excited to have a client, a friend, a very special human with us, Morgan, who in a moment we're going to get into. My vision is a really open, intimate conversation about the work around redefining intimacy. And as we're here in this hub, the Intimacy Hub, and we're talking about the three pillars of the redefining intimacy system, and those being the one self discovery, relationships as a pathway, as well as the communication for connections method. But for those of you who don't know me, if you're new to this page, I know we've had several new people joining us over the past couple of weeks. My name is Tziporah Kingsbury, and I am an intimacy and relationship educator. And as we move forward in our conversation today, we want you to be involved with us. And so, how you do that, because we are on a different platform today than I had planned. We are on a platform where if you see it, if you go into the comments, it's going to actually say, I'm going to read it to you. It's going to say live viewer comments show up on the live stream, right? So you actually have to give permission to a platform called StreamYard in order for me to see your comments, because we're being hosted on a platform versus being right on Facebook. So I can't actually see the thread with you. So if you want to dive in throughout the conversation, I'm going to be asking questions and welcoming your questions for both of us. And so on that note, I want to introduce our special guest, Morgan. I don't know why I have such a challenge saying your last name. I don't know why I always blank. McNamara? Pronounce it.
McNamara.
McNamara. See, I wanted to say McNamara. So welcome, Morgan McNamara. And Morgan has recently, I think it's been 2 weeks now, maybe, completed the Redefining Intimacy 10-week program. However, before we even get into that, Morgan, I would love you to tell everyone more about where you come from, what excites you in your life, and yeah, let's start there, like where you live, and what's alive for you today. Yeah.
Ooh, thank you. So I am living in Bend, Oregon, and I work in coffee. So I'm a barista. And I feel that what's been alive for me for a long time, and now I'm finding the words for it, is just having deep connections with anybody who's willing to show themselves. Like, I just feed off of, I guess I'm using this word, emotional literacy. Like, there's just a spark that happens when someone's willing to look me in the eye, even if it's just for a moment. And I just really get fuel from those kinds of interactions. And I see a lot of that in the Bend community, which is why I'm still here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I know that eye connection it's interesting, even as we're on technology. So where do we look? Where's that eye connection, and taking a moment for it, because I value that as well. So thank you for that. Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to look down for a moment, because I will share with you and our audience, this is the first time ever in my life, and I'm going to be 50 soon, that I've written out questions for an interview. And I've never done that before. I have no clue why I did that, but here we are. So at this time in your life, I'm curious, why are you choosing, and it might not be something new, but in my experience, why are you choosing to dive so deep into this developmental work? Because working with you, I know how sincerely you take it, and how much you've been applying, and it seems like you do this with everything, applying it to your life. And so I'm curious if there's a why for you, like why now more than ever?
Yeah, I think COVID right? A pandemic where I've had the fortune of, I've still had my job this whole time and have noticed that truly I was the only person a lot of people interacted with every day. Um, and I feel the, gosh, I'm going to cry right now talking. All it takes is one person to show themselves, and that could change like someone's complete outlook on life. And I think that we're faced right now more than ever with a call to action to really wake up. I mean, there's so many different platforms in social justice and like environmental, political, so many things going on right now begging for our attention. And I kind of have been spinning out, trying to be like, okay, I'm going to focus here and listen deeply, and I'm going to focus over here and listen deeply. But at the end of the day, what this time period has shown me with everything grabbing for my attention is that my perspective is truly the only perspective I get to have for an entire lifespan. And I get to make an impact every moment. And it's like each word that gets used has a weight. And working in coffee, I get to talk to 100 people every day. And I see the effect that it has in the shop. Yeah, that's my first time trying to phrase that. But it just feels like a very potent time period where a lot of people are willing to relook at everything. And language is the foundation, what I'm finding. And I'm trying to learn a new language and teach it to other people so that we can operate in a more peaceful, loving way. Yeah, I don't know. Ooh.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Thank
Yeah.
you for opening up and sharing that the importance of language, and that all it takes is like one connection, right? That one moment of offering presence to another person. And I get this vision, you in the coffee shop, and that the impact, because so many people come in and out where they did, and it's just like having that impact and having that idea of it only takes one. And that one, right, is so influenced in that domino effect, and it just keeps dripping and dripping and dripping onto the next. And so thank you so much for just carrying that intention in your hearts and your being and your presence in your life. I know I really appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, uh, so appreciate you. And I know that conversation, like it only takes one, I find is really big, is because, yeah, like this year, I find we've been obviously challenged immensely. However, when I think of intimacy and human connection, I find we've been, often I use the word invited because I tend to like softer language, but I don't think it's been such an invitation. I think it's been a like, you better figure out how to create intimacy and connection in the world, because it's no longer maybe as easy as it was, or we don't have what we're used to having. And so it's like, where can we be resourceful, resilient, and creative? Like those are the qualities that come to me. And so here we are, right? And I'm hearing you being that, being resourceful, being resilient, and being creative, and impacting one person at a time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that to me is a part of this work, right? A part of, when I think of redefining intimacy, I think that was an influence to it. It's just like, it's not about it's not about sex or sexuality. And that's a big thing when it comes to intimacy. I get often the charge. And I'm just like, no, let's open our, broaden our perspective and really lean into what is actually available there in intimate connection, which is the language, the conversations, the presence, the deep listening, the the authenticity, the compassion, the like just loving without hesitation, like just being available even in our differences. That to me is that impact of redefining our idea of intimacy and how it can impact our lives. So on that note, I'm going to look at my questions because I've got more for you. So, when you dove into the specific work and the pillars of redefining intimacy with the course and the program, what were some of your initial areas that you wanted to focus on? Initial, like not when you got into it, but when you first like, I want to do this. Did you have specific areas of focus that you knew you wanted to explore?
Yes, I initially wanted to explore myself and my connection to myself. How do I think I've become I really like learning and hearing about other people's stories. And I found that I've been incredibly ineffective at communicating mine. And so it was a big challenge, even in the group setting, to not be like reaching out on the side, like communicating with everyone in class of like, oh, I hear you going through this, or like, oh, I see this, or I have this thing to offer. It was a really big challenge, and I'm proud of myself for trying to like just hone in on me. What am I feeling? Because a lot of times, especially like uncomfortable feelings, I've always known I can say, I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I say that I'm feeling uncomfortable and then I leave. And I never like up until now, and I'm still working through this of like learning how to show the discomfort and like explore it and sit in it and like let that be okay. That's a piece that I've really wanted, because I've noticed like relationships don't ever they don't ever go away, and bad feelings with people, those just kind of build on top of each other. And I believe it's like my role to clear that and take ownership over it. And it's maybe I'll never get what I want from that relationship. But yeah, I think there's just like some tension points, and like that is what I got a little lost. But did that answer a little bit of your question?
It did.
Okay.
It did. It did. I get your answers, and we speak the same language, Morgan. Yes,
Yes, we do.
and that desire to have that focus on turning it into you and being able to share your story and your feelings. And I know you mentioned earlier, like literacy, emotional literacy. I, in a moment, would like to dive deeper into that, about how that unfolded over the 10 weeks for you, and what challenges, I call them opportunities, but for the viewers, we'll call them challenges, so it's a little bit more understood. What challenges, edges came up for you. And I'm going to have you pause on that, because I just realized, Tech, again, I apologize. I'm going to open the community page, because that way I can see on another platform if people are commenting. And I'm new for this, folks, kind of, for this platform. So 1 minute, and I just want to open that up for us. See what's happening. Okay. All right, we're just going to keep going. And so, Morgan, now share with us, share when you had that focus, how did it start to present itself as the weeks went on? Some of the, let's start with the beginning, like some edges that you were like guided into and sat with and maybe kind of expanded a little bit into?
Yeah. Yeah. So previously I just shared that when uncomfortable feelings come up, I would either say something and just remove myself from a conversation and like step away, never to return to it again. I would return to the people, but not the thing. Um, and as the course went on, I would say the first tangible way I started working with this was when we had a chart presented to us of it was a wheel of human feelings, and it's universal feelings, right? So they're feelings that everyone feels, and it was like something that I still carried around with me actually right now. It makes it like just to grab the word and insert it, and like it helps me remove myself from this scenario, and I'm like, I guess, yeah, backing up, first I would remove myself from the scene without any words. Then I knew I wanted to return to the conversation. So as the course progressed, I was encouraged to say when I would return. So, like, I've been triggered. I'm going to take some space. I will return to this conversation at this point in time. That was pretty edgy for me because I knew that that was what I wanted to do, but I still didn't know how to process the discomfort. So I'm like, okay, whether it's 25 minutes or 25 days, I still like I can find peace and like process within myself, but I still don't know the words to like share with someone. So that was like a gap. And then when the chart, just universal human emotions, was presented, then I had something that I could carry around with me, and started journaling. Oh, I know what I started journaling. The 5 steps to communication. There were some steps that you shared with us, and it kind of reminded me of Mad Libs. So I made it a little bit of a game, and I'm still processing and working through this part. But using, how do I phrase this?
Can I ask another question, Morgan?
Yeah, of
Can I
course.
jump in? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna explain something to the viewers is first, hearing you say like that practice of, God, how do I just identify my feelings and being able to communicate that with somebody else? And not just that, but having the boundary of realizing you don't have to complete the conversation or dialogue in the moment if you're not clear, or if we're not clear, right? So I just want to explain this a little bit to everyone watching, listening in, is that how often do we miss that mark in our life, that we feel like if we're in an urgent conversation, or a conversation that we feel pressured, or we're having an argument, or we're just having a disagreement, we feel obligated, that we feel frantic, right? So the body starts to constrict, the throat, the chest, like literally, we know the tension, and then panic sets into the mind. And then we start to feel confused. And I'm saying we because it's a common thread, physiological response in the body. And then it's not even that we didn't have the word beforehand, but now we really don't have the words because our system is just in such a tight round ball, in that fight, flight, or freeze response. And now we don't have the simplicity that you're even saying of the tools that you're presented, of just being able to identify what I'm feeling, like a word. Because in that moment, one word can be a saving grace in that type of situation. But what Morgan's sharing is to be able to learn that having boundaries is more than okay. Like, having boundaries is an act of love to any relationship, friendship, business partnership, and how to start to learn from a felt sense, like, so the nervous system actually feels safe over a time to start to vocalize that boundary. Am I on the path here?
Oh,
Am I
yeah.
different languaging? But yeah. And so, because there's so many layers to this, right? There's being able to unpack the nervous system, the felt sense, what's happening in our body physiologically. And then there's that layer of unpacking oh, I was always told it was bad to say no, or I have to show up this way. So it's unpacking all those beliefs and ideas. So we're working internally to shift to the external. And then at the same time, and then there's tools that come in like formulas or methods, charts that then simplify the physical aspect, the skill building of it. And now together we have this system of bringing it all together. So you're working within and without and applying it to your life, which I'm hearing like at first, yeah, could feel scary. It would feel uncomfortable, but at least having something to look at to say, oh, I've noticed I'm feeling agitated. Like how that, yes, is that
Yes.
you feel that exhale? Yes. Yeah. So I'm curious. First, let's go with the course because we were in a group, an international group, live every week, going into breakout rooms and having circle shares, very intimate and vulnerable. And so I know that you stepped up quite a bit and shared. I so appreciated your shares during the course, like so much. And I'm curious, particularly in those shares, what were the edges for you, like live on the course? And how did you move through those?
Whoa. Yeah, one of the edges we touched on earlier was just that how do you make eye contact? I had a hard time yeah. One of the edges was just showing up and opening my mouth and watching myself get big. It's like, ooh. Edges in my shares.
Were there edges? Were there difficulties and challenges? Growth?
There were. It's kind of happening right now. I'm feeling a little frightened, like on the spot. I'm wishing that I had written down my challenges and had something to reference. I left my body quite a few times, and just simply sharing is so scary to me. And to have everyone looking at me. Oh, that was something that, oh my God. I remember one share I covered I dimmed down this was part of the thing, was to make eye contact and just be seen. But I defied the rules and turned down my dimmer because I couldn't stand it. Oh, wow. That was early. That was like week 2, I think. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. That was big. That was really big.
Let's pause there, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, let's just breathe that in. Yeah, I acknowledge you, Morgan, for sharing that here. I acknowledge you for sharing so openly. That's my interpretation when I listen to you, is this open, wanting to lean in, vulnerable. And in my wish and hope is, as those of you watching here and listening in, is this is relatable. What you're sharing, Morgan, is very relatable. And just not everyone talks about it. So thank you. Yeah. So thank you. And thank you for having the courage to take care of yourself, because on a course like this, you are taking care of yourself, meaning that if something is too much for the system in the moment, you've dimmed. And I celebrate that because it wasn't wrong. It was you being, yeah, I feel I'm not ready in this moment. And I'm going to take a pause, and just be with me. And how often, right? Like we're having this conversation about the course, about your experience, like very personal. And again, I want to relate it to those listening, is that this is so common
Yeah.
in life for many of us, that we're not supposed to say no again or take care of ourselves. Or we don't get celebrated for taking care of ourselves, or we have to follow the rules. We
Yeah.
have to do what someone tells us to do in a workshop, versus being able to say, like, okay, so no, I'm going to show up as a co-creator in life and in my class. And I know I'm here to learn and grow. It's what I'm showing up for. But if something becomes too much, I'm going to say it. Right. And then we can have that conversation. And this is applicable to our relationships. It's applicable to our work environments, to our family life. And while learning the dialogue and having the dialogues can feel foreign, like learning a foreign language at first, and very odd. Um, my biggest wish is that this becomes more and more of everyday world and society, that we create space for something like this. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Morgan.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something else that just came up for me throughout this whole process is I've just noticed that there is a lot of judgment that I carry, and a lot of judgment through this process of like feeling stupid because I'm doing this whole system reset. And I think just like having a space once a week to go and be is okay, that I like broke a rule, right? It wasn't really a rule, but um, having a space where that's okay, like gave me like a sight to a new way of living, that I haven't really had a community like of 10 people wanting to live a new way. Like just that support once a week was so inspiring. And then I just kind of felt silly, like when I jump back into, I'll call it 3D. Um, I would watch myself judge myself for feeling stupid, but like those are all just like, that's an old language. And it's been cool to notice it's still there, but it's that's been a huge part of my process, is like really slowing down and having this judgment that slow is dumb and dumb is bad or isolating. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been big.
Yeah. Yeah. Morgan, I'm curious, what was, and you've answered a lot of this already, but if we can tap into maybe one or two really big discoveries that you make, because I know, so again, just to give more context to people, is the weekly process, rather than saying homework, is is everyone in the course got what I called home discoveries. And because I felt that I wanted to take the work out of it and made it more, oh, that's what can I discover about myself? What can I learn through applying these tools and techniques into my everyday life? And so Morgan gets what I mean, because obviously she did it and was a part of it. And so every week I'd get these emails with pages of discoveries from everyone. And I so much valued that, because I saw the commitment and the willingness and how deep everyone was going into actually sharing this with parents in their work environment, with roommates. And so I'm curious if you'd share with us one or two big discoveries that you made in, we'll call it the real world, like outside of the time we were together on our call, but in your life by applying a tool or two from the course or from things you've learned?
Yeah. I, the first thing that stood out to me was kind of that, like, connecting feelings in my body, singular, um, connecting the feeling to an emotion. So like that, it feels kind of like a sucker punch where the belly goes shoop and it goes. Brrr. I felt that feeling probably 5 times, like a trigger throughout the course, and um, I was able to like observe the feeling and then like slow down, I guess, throughout that process. That was really profound to just connect to my body. I guess that's a discovery. Um, Bringing the mind and body closer together. Uh, hmm.
Yeah.
Nervous. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm hearing like, yeah, a big discovery was learning that how to slow down and be more present in your body, like the connection between mind and body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Embracing even those moments where were nervous. Because I remember that. And you just, oh, it's okay to pause. Like I'm hearing that's a discovery for you.
Yes.
Taking time to let the mind and the body to come online together, like almost a heart and brain coherence, heart and brain and body coherence. With that discovery, I would love to know, how was that applied? If you can share some examples, some really tangible pieces where you've applied this content, tools, and discoveries to a situation in your life over the past 12 weeks.
Hmm. So hmm, I think I touched on this example earlier. Um, but I was in a group setting. There were 4 of us, and I was triggered. So I felt through conversation something came up, and I had that feeling in my body. And I announced, I'm triggered. I'll see you all later. Got on my bike and was starting to ride away. And then I kind of had this moment where I was like, what just happened? Um, hmm. I guess this was a moment where I returned to the group. I'm a little nervous. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I returned to the group and shared that a feeling of abandonment had been triggered for me and that I'm okay. And I actually wanted to continue interacting with them and that like the moment had passed. And that's the first time I think I've taken ownership over my feelings. It was a group of really close friends, and often I would be triggered and leave, and then people would then reach out to me individually, like on the side, doing sort of this very sweet, like, but caretaking role. And in that interaction, where I remember to return to the situation, they didn't ask me to share what was going on, but I was able to identify what the trigger was and put a word on it. And I felt so empowered. And I was able to just move through that moment and then continue showing up with my friends that were being incredibly supportive, and we were just having a good time. Whereas normally that would have been a situation I left and felt kind of crappy, and it would have taken me a couple hours to kind of wind down on my own. It was like a personal process. I was able to include others in my process and move through it faster, I guess. Or I don't know. That's my example for now. That's what first came to mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
sharing that. And what I'm hearing you say is, again, I'm hearing the slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were able to be present enough to say, I'm feeling triggered. So able enough to get some words out. Honor yourself and take care of yourself by leaving the group, but then having the development of being present inside of yourself and having, I don't know what your process was between leaving the group and going back, but being able to have an awareness of inner dialogue to be able to, like, one, come into a calmer or centered place, and two, get really clear on what was going on for you. And to me, and then that next step is you were able to get clear on what was going on for you, able to have words applied, like the literacy for it. And then you chose, wow, yeah, now I want to do something different. I want to go back and actually be honest about and accountable for what I'm feeling, and to share it in the sense, like, I'm sharing these steps because these are steps for, again, those you listening, these are steps that are applicable. Yes, yay, woo! That these are the steps we go through in the Redefining Intimacy system, and we've gone through in the 10-week course. But I'm acknowledging you, Morgan, for then going back and choosing, even potentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Like, potentially you might have felt, it might have felt scary. It might have felt a little nervous. But you're just like, I'm going to, like, my interpretation of that is intimate. That's intimate. I'm going to be open, accountable, and honest. And that means I'm kind of more open for people to access, which I define, that would be my definition of intimacy. How does that feel for you? Is
That
that?
resonates deeply. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so, oh, again, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I get really excited when I hear such stories and experiences, but application. And I just feel that really coming from, your heart. And so thank you for that.
Mm. Yay.
Ah, and
Ah.
thank you for showing up so big for yourself and your relationships and your connections. If there was one, as we come towards the close soon of our conversation here tonight, if there was one more piece of a biggest takeaway, because we've shared so many takeaways, but I'm hearing the impact on your communication. I'm hearing the impact on emotional literacy. I'm hearing the impact on the relationship with your own nervous system and the shifts within your own, maybe, emotional stories and past. Like, I'm hearing so many shifts for you. But if there's any other big takeaway, that you want to share as we prepare to kind of wind down in our conversation,
Mm.
or anything that you want to share about your experience of redefining intimacy, why you would maybe suggest someone else take it, like,
Yeah.
from your experience.
Yeah. As far as the context of the workshop, I was surprised by how much, without taking any stories from my personal life or like the home discoveries, without bringing that into the space, I was able to show up, or I was still challenged in all the same ways I am in my personal life with a group of initial strangers online. It's like it's the same as real life and relationships I've had for 10 years. These are just, um, it almost showed my patterns more clearly when I was with a group of people that I didn't know. Like that felt really scary at first, but then the parallels I was able to draw through the spaces, helped me kind of just see the story, hear the storytelling that I do, and try and like cut through it. Um, I was so surprised at how intimate the space felt instantly with a group of people that I might never meet in person and are all over the world, different time zones, and we don't even have to have the same story. Like the only thing we had in common was that we wanted to redefine intimacy, and together we like took a huge step. And I just was very surprised at how present I still felt in a space with people that I couldn't touch. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And that coming back full circle to what we started the conversation with is creating intimacy in a new way in 2020 and being challenged, like get resilient and creative. And hearing you share about how 10 strangers could reflect back to you your stories and habits and patterns in new ways that maybe weren't going to be showed up with people you knew, but also how I'm going to say mind blowingly because it blew my mind as well. How intimate instantly it felt, because I'll say this is the first year that I've pivoted this program onto an online platform, as many have this year, and I didn't know. I honestly had questions. I was just like, what is this going to look like on Zoom? Especially because it's such a um, somatic felt sense, experience versus only working with the mind. And so we did create that. And I so appreciate you being a part of it, Morgan. You added to the circle. And I appreciate you being on this call today and again sharing you and your experience with the world right now here on social media. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before, yeah, aw.
Hmm.
Before I go into final notes, is there anything else you want to share before I kind of prepare to final notes for our viewers?
Oh, no, nothing else. I'm done sharing. Thank you.
She
My
is
legs are like
complete.
crossed. I'm like, now I can I'm done. I'm complete. I am complete. I feel complete.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So, thank you, Morgan. So, if you're listening to this, if you're going to tune in now or to the replay, we are starting our next online course, 10-week course on November 11th, the Redefining Intimacy System. And I am thrilled to jump in. I'm so excited. I wanted to start another 10 weeks so quickly. If you, I don't know, if you're just like looking for more connection right now, if you're looking to build more community during the social distancing and what's going on in the world, if you're wanting to develop more emotional literacy and work through some of the messy stuff that comes up, and more so that's amplified right now in our relationships, in our work environment, and with your own nervous system, just reach out, comment below in this feed here on Intimacy Hub, share it with a friend, and I would love to just get on a call with you and just see what's alive there. Okay, so we thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned because I'm going to be going live every week now into live trainings on Thursday afternoons. You will find those posts here, and all the trainings will be focused on the Redefining Intimacy system, and then the three pillars of the one self discovery, the communication for connection method, as well as relationships as a pathway. So stay tuned, share more of what you want to learn, and I will see you next week. So be well.